All right, welcome back for the first time in a little while. Apologies for the little break that I took there, but I'm going to be getting back into it with a quick little news of the day video here, and quite a lot has happened throughout the past couple of days. Some more exciting news than others, but ultimately I'm just really stoked for some of the news that we got here. The first half of this video is mainly going to be going over some tournaments that are upcoming that's kind of affecting a whole bunch of teams, and then the last little bit of the video we'll talk about some of the roster changes and roster shuffling that we've been seeing with some of these teams. But first things first, before I really get into the nitty gritty of this video, just a quick reminder that the Chinese, Eastern Europe, aka CIS, and North America regional finals are going to be starting in just under 2 days from now. They're going to be taking place on February 18th all the way to the 20th. There's going to be 2 series per day per region. And of course, those grand finals, those best of fives, are going to be taking place on the 20th for every single region, which is very exciting. There's going to be a lot of Dota to watch. I'm hoping we end up having some more intense and back and forth series than we saw in some of the other regions. For example, Western Europe, which ended up being a lot more stompy than I was hoping for. But regardless, there was still some great Dota, and there's some real highlights and some real highlight matches that I'd recommend you guys check out if you get the chance. But yeah, that's going to be starting up soon, and I'm going to be having previews going up for every single one of those regions throughout the next couple days, of course, before it starts. Next little bit of news, we have a date for the second major, or at least what should have been the second major, because of course the cancellation of the first one has kind of brought everyone down, brought their spirits down. There was a whole drama about it, but we have official news that there is a tournament organizer that has picked up this the major that is going to be taking place after the conclusion of the second tour, and that is going to be the ESL1 Stockholm Major that takes place on May 20th until 22nd. And what makes this especially exciting, not only because we've been so deprived of inter-regional play for such a long time now, ever since TI10 pretty much, unless you're looking at outside tournaments in which only very close regions play with one another. This tournament is going to be including a crowd, and it's going to be the first time in over 2 years that we're going to have a tournament that is actually having a crowd in front of it, which is super exciting. It's been way too long. Tickets are on sale on Thursday. I'm not exactly sure what the specific time is, but everything I talk about in the description down below, you guys can figure it out for yourselves. And if you're at all interested in going to Stockholm for a couple days, maybe a week, you can go watch the first major that Dota's had in person in a very long time. So yeah, I'm super stoked for that. Following that, not actually something that's DPC related, which is not usually stuff I talk about, but I thought I would give you guys a heads up that the Dota 2 Champions League Season 8 is going to be taking place immediately after these regional finals. These regional finals end on the 20th, and then on February 21st until March 13th, we're going to be having Season 8 of the Dota 2 Champions League, which includes a bunch of teams that you guys are probably familiar with, teams that I've listed here, but in case you can't read it, I'll go through them. Kicking things off, we have Alliance, Hydra, who was a lower division team in Eastern Europe. We have Bait, who was also down there, and I'm happily surprised that they've managed to hold their roster together despite their pretty horrendous tour. They've been actually getting some pretty half-decent results as of late, which is always exciting because, well, the history that Bait has is not exactly a very successful one. We have Empire, Gambit, Entity, Hellraisers, Namiga. We also have Mind Games, No Sorry, which is the only one on this list that I'm not personally familiar with. We then have AS Monaco Gambit, which is also kind of interesting because their roster was placed on the inactive side of things. However, that might only be for the DPC, just because you can't have 2 teams from the same org playing in the same division. So I guess they're going to be reactivated for this. We have Lil Gun, and then we're going to have 2 additional teams coming in through qualifiers. What is also very interesting about this is some of these teams on here have made some roster changes but haven't finalized things yet, and so by the time we hit the 21st, we might actually know what some of these rosters might end up looking like for the second tour and maybe for the rest of this season. For example, Alliance, which is just down to 2 members right now. We don't know what the roster is going to look like. It's been quite a long time that they've had a lot of empty slots, and within the next 5 days, we should have an idea of what that roster should be looking like. Again, they're heading to the lower division, so it might be harder to attract some of the big name players that they would have if they had stayed in the upper division, but you never know. I am I'm excited to see what happens. So yeah, anyways, let me know what you guys think about any of these tournaments. Again, the in-person one I think is the most exciting news of all. You know, watching Dota at the regional finals or the Champions League is going to be fun and all, but having a crowd there really makes the experience so much better. Finally, now moving into the back half of this video, which I don't imagine will end up taking as long, but it's going to be going over some stuff like roster shuffling and changes that we've been seeing in some of the teams here. First off, coming from T1, they have confirmed, or more alluded to the fact that Gabbi is going to be sticking with the team here on forward. Their CEO mentioned on Twitter that they're going to be moving the entire team to the Philippines, all so that they can play together. He had mentioned it was mainly to avoid situations like what happened in the grand finals against Boom, which of course Carl had internet issues in game 4 and wasn't able to play, and whether or not that would have changed the results, we'll never know. I thought Lelich played pretty well in his place, but of course not having your entire stack there does kind of hinder your play a little bit, especially when they were already playing with someone as new as Gabbi on the roster as well. So they're going to be moving there. He tagged Gabbi in that post, which implies that he's going to be sticking around on the team, and so it looks like that's going to be the case. And this also kind of gives me a chance to talk about the fact that T1 and Boom are both going to be facing point deductions because they made roster changes, and T1 specifically is going to be losing even more because they had to have a stand-in in those grand finals, which is even more salt in the wound as already not having Carl there and losing the series. So anyways, yeah, very exciting stuff coming up from Southeast Asia. One of the other teams in another region that just concluded their regional finals in South America, we have NoPing, although these guys weren't actually included on those regional finals. More so, they were actually headed for the lower division because they played pretty poorly, especially in the back half of the tour. They have just parted ways with their roster. It's unclear whether or not the players themselves are going to be sticking together, maybe trying to find a new org to play with, but as of right now, NoPing has a completely empty list of players right now, and they have mentioned that they're going to be looking for a new list, and they're going to be looking to play in Tour 2 with a brand new roster. However, again, being a team that is now headed into the lower division, it might be a little difficult to attract some of those high-tier players that you would need to get yourself back up to the upper division. So we'll see where they go from there. I'm curious to know what you guys think they'll end up doing. And finally, last little bit of news, some pretty fresh news here in comparison with some of the other stuff I'm talking about here. We have Navi, who notably were one of the teams that made their changes heading into the season very early. They had put their roster together before TI-10 even took place, which means that they had pretty much a jump start, a head start ahead of a bunch of other teams that made those last minute changes heading into the first tour, in the fact that they've played together for quite a long time and they got a chance to know each other very well. And then heading into this tour, they underperformed. By their standards, you know that these guys were pretty disappointed with the results they ended up getting, especially with those circumstances of being together for such a long time. And so, unfortunately, things didn't work out, and they have let go of Coach Artstyle, and General has left the team as well. And they're currently looking for a new offlane player. Rumor is that there's potentially some more players on their way out. I don't know who that exactly would be, but I'm curious to see where they go from here. Again, after being together for longer than a lot of these other teams in the division and not exactly having the best results, it makes sense why they would be a little bit disappointed with their final results. But yeah, anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. As always, again, sources, everything linked in the description. Discord down there as well if you're at all curious about joining a Discord server where we talk all things DPC with people just like yourself. Feel free to join that. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Previews coming up throughout the next couple days, and I'll talk to you guys later.